Hey everyone, David Chen here. Let's talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League, also known as the Snyder Cut, which is streaming right now on HBO Max. Now, I do want to warn you, I am going to spoil both this version of Justice League as well as the 2017 Justice League, so make sure you watch all 6 hours of Justice League before watching this video, or if you don't care about that kind of thing, please continue and watch the rest of this video review. Let's get into it. The original Justice League movie was released in 2017, and it was supposed to be DC Universe's version of the Avengers, right? This big budget blockbuster that brought together all these iconic characters to defeat a world-threatening evil. And unfortunately, the director, Zack Snyder, who was DC's choice to kind of shepherd this franchise through to this point in time, he had to depart the film mid-production due to challenging circumstances as well as personal tragedy. So the executives at Warner Brothers and DC brought in Joss Whedon to take over for Zack Snyder. And that decision made some amount of sense. I mean, Joss Whedon had successfully brought the Avengers to box office smashing success, and so maybe he could bring his magic to this film as well. Unfortunately, we all know what happened, which is that Justice League, the 2017 version, wasn't a very good film. It made over $650 million worldwide, but that was far short of expectations, and it just wasn't particularly enjoyable to watch. It felt like a lot of different voices and visions were competing in the film, and the story was not particularly a compelling one. In the time since then, there's been growing calls to release the Snyder Cut, which is Zack Snyder's original version of this film. Now, we should clarify there was no original version of the Snyder Cut because Snyder's version was never completed. But theoretically, if you gave Zack Snyder a ton of money, he could go back, reshoot some things, redo some effects, and come up with something that was close to his vision for the film. And that's, in fact, what has happened here. Now, the changes to Justice League in Zack Snyder's Justice League are pretty massive. This is not just a handful of extra scenes. The original Justice League clocked in at around 2 hours. This one is 4 hours long. So there are many, many new scenes, obviously, 2 hours worth of new material, but even a lot of the existing material from the old Justice League has been excised. So like a lot of that stuff has been replaced and made more to fit in the tone of this new version. And overall, I gotta say, I actually kind of like Zack Snyder's Justice League. I found it to be an enjoyable film to watch. Sure, it's 4 hours long and a lot of it is over the top in a way that's almost self-parody, but overall, it is a cohesive vision of what this movie was supposed to be. And in general, it's better and more enjoyable, more interesting to watch any version of a film that represents the original creator's vision versus one where control has been taken away from him and it's been redone. The original 2017 Justice League felt like this mishmash of two different styles. You have Snyder's incredibly dark aesthetic and bleak outlook on humanity that's coupled with Joss Whedon's jokiness and fun, and it just didn't quite feel right. You know, you had characters like Superman and Batman that had behaved completely differently in previous films like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and all of a sudden they're cracking jokes and we're all having fun, and it just didn't feel right. It felt weird. And this movie does away with all that. I mean, almost all of the humor and jokes have been removed from Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I'm okay with that. I mean, if you're looking for that stuff, there's a whole Marvel Cinematic Universe you can check that stuff out in. And I kind of like that this movie is doing something a little bit different. Zack Snyder's Justice League is also just a fascinating pop culture artifact. I mean, it's very rare that we have the opportunity to see a director's cut where this much money has been invested into it, where it's building roads to parts of cinematic universes that will likely never exist, and where the original version of the film is also technically directed by Zack Snyder and is available for you to stream as well, but is clearly very different. I mean, what's great about this is you can kind of compare the two films and see kind of how Zack Snyder's original vision might have appeared in this movie, but also see what decisions were made to guide the original 2017 Justice League into the place where it is right now. And that's just an insight into the creative process we usually don't get. So I'm really grateful for that. Now, on that note, there's a couple caveats I need to point out. Zack Snyder's Justice League, as it appears on HBO Max, is very uncommercial. It's shot in a kind of square aspect ratio, which the movie makes sure to explain to you before the movie starts so that you don't think something is wrong with your television. This is to optimize for the IMAX experience, and of course we know most movie screens in the country are not IMAX, so right off the bat, it would have been pretty difficult for this to be shown in a format that was optimal in most movie theater screens. It's also, of course, 4 hours long, and that would have been hard to get people to turn out for as well. So I don't know that this movie would have been successful if it was released in this form in 2017, and quite likely it would have been unsuccessful. It might have been less successful than Joss Whedon's / Zack Snyder's version of Justice League that was actually released. The other thing I want to say is while there are plenty of people who are into Snyder's work that are perfectly wonderful, normal people, there's a huge portion of his fan base that is toxic, that harasses people online at any mentions of Snyder, any criticism of Snyder. And I can't help but feel like the release of this film encourages and emboldens them. I hope that in the future, Zack Snyder uses his considerable influence to denounce these people at every opportunity and to tamp down the level of vitriol that's online right now. Nobody deserves to be on the receiving end of it. Okay, let's talk about just the movie itself. So what is great about Zack Snyder's Justice League that's out right now on HBO Max? The biggest thing is Cyborg. And in fact, in interviews, Zack Snyder has said that Cyborg's plotline was really rewarding to put back into the film and that he's the heart of the film. And I actually have to say I agree. I think Cyborg's plotline in this movie is pretty great. I mean, first of all, there's this really cool visualization of Cyborg's powers, which you don't get in the original Justice League, where it shows in like physical form what Cyborg is capable of. He can control the world's nuclear arsenal. He can control the world's banks and technology and all this stuff. And it just looks pretty awesome. Let's put aside the fact that maybe you don't want to give your kid control of the nuclear arsenal and all the world's banks. Whether or not that's a good idea, and I would say no one man should have all that power, the fact that it's in this movie, I think, is great and really gives you a better sense of who Cyborg is. On top of that, you get a lot more of Cyborg's backstory, his football career. There's a really cool football scene that's in the trailers for Justice League that wasn't in the film. Now it's back in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And you get a much better sense of his relationship with his father, what his motivations are, and how tortured he is at his own appearance and at the way he has become because of what his father did to him. It's all pretty compelling and I think just improves the film in a big way. Another thing this movie dramatically improves is Steppenwolf, the villain of the original Justice League. And in this one, he's trying to get the mother boxes, create the unity, destroy the world, blah, blah, blah. The original version of Steppenwolf looked like, how do you say, hot garbage. He did not have a compelling or interesting appearance. And in this movie, it's been upgraded a lot. First of all, it's his armor. Like, that's really pretty frightening. Like, it's made up of, like, looks like a million different pieces that can, like, hurt you if they want to. And I think that stuff is all really, he just looks like a pretty awesome fearsome villain, and that's not something we had in the original Justice League. They also do something to give Steppenwolf a little bit more motivation in this film. Like, he's like kind of this disgraced general who's trying to impress Darkseid and not just like generically evil trying to take over everything. And so I don't love it, but I think that the Steppenwolf in this film visually looks a lot better, plot-wise a little bit better. So that's another big improvement in Zack Snyder's Justice League. One other thing I really appreciated about Zack Snyder's Justice League, all the stuff with the Flash, Barry Allen's character. The original Barry Allen in Justice League was kind of this neurotic, funny dude that cracked jokes. He was a lot of the original film's source of humor. And in this movie, a lot of that's gone. You still have a little bit of it. But really, what I like most about this character in this film is when you compare him to Quicksilver in the X-Men universe, or even in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this version of the Flash, aka guy who can move really fast, to some degree. I know there's like, you play into some weird relativity rules and all that stuff and whatever, but like to some degree, I like that this movie respects the Flash's physics, right? If you have a guy who can move at the speed of light and he touches something, it's gonna like put a hole in that thing. It's gonna completely destroy that thing because he's moving so fast. And this movie, and to some extent the original 2017 version, like actually respects that. It actually makes it so that you understand the awesome power that the Flash wields in being able to move so quickly. On that note, the ending of Zack Snyder's Justice League feels like completely different. The setup of why they're doing the things they're doing to like separate the mother boxes is really different. They got rid of the whole civilians being in danger that Joss Whedon put in there, and I think I didn't miss it at all. Also, the color palette has completely changed. The Joss Whedon version really had this hellish red, we're in this inferno kind of deal, and this version in Zack Snyder's Justice League restores the original dark blue cool color palette that I think is a massive improvement. Everything just looks like it was intended to be this way, versus in Joss Whedon's Zack Snyder's version in 2017 it just felt off, and I love how this movie ends quite a great deal. Now, I was talking about the Flash just now, and the Flash and the way he plays into Zack Snyder's Justice League's ending, I actually really love. He goes so fast, he's able to rewind time and undo some of the terrible things that have happened in this reality. And that's just like a really cool idea, and the way it plays out on screen is really interesting as well. So like I dug the hell out of it. And it kind of gives Flash this nice moment too, like, hey, I gotta go above and beyond what I'm capable of. It was great. So I actually thought it was beautiful the way that the Flash does his thing at the end. Whereas in the original 2017 Justice League, like he's basically not really involved in the ending at all, except for saving civilians. So I thought that this was like by far the biggest improvement for me is the Flash, how this movie ends, the triumphant standing on top of the tower at the end and the slow motion and everything like that. Just as with the rest of the film, it felt all of a piece. And so overall, had a great time with Zack Snyder's Justice League. There's also just a bunch of random little touches. Zack Snyder, for anything negative you have to say about him, he is an extremely talented visual stylist. He understands how to put together an image, add on the slow motion, add on the music in a way that makes it feel epic. And that's definitely present throughout this movie in a way that was absent from the 2017 version of Justice League. The music cues are a lot different. Not only are the needle drops different, but also the score is different and feels very much more aligned with Batman v Superman as well as Man of Steel. So I dug the music as well. But there's just a lot of like nice little touches as well. Like in the original Justice League, when Aquaman was talking with Bruce Wayne and he like goes back in the water, he kind of like zips away. And in this version of the movie, he kind of makes a little ripple and vanishes. And that's just like, what a nice little touch, you know? Another little touch like this is Steppenwolf has like these kind of like Minority Report like spider things that crawl on people's faces and extract information from them. And that's just like completely absent from the 2017 Justice League. And it's just kind of like, oh, what a cool like concept, cool like sci-fi-ish concept, supernatural concept. I dug it. So in addition to kind of the big picture things, there's just all these little touches that I thought were a lot improved in this version of Justice League. I mean, some people might not find them to be improvements. Some people might just find it to be like more. But I actually really enjoyed it. But Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's not all great, right? It's not perfect. There's a lot of problems with it still, okay? And let's talk about some of them. I talked earlier about how Steppenwolf is a better villain in this movie, but he's still a pretty shit villain. I mean, he's still someone... ideally, when you're watching one of these movies, you want to be able to root for the villain. You want to like understand what that guy's motivations are, and a little bit better in this movie, but like you compare it to how the MCU handled Thanos in Infinity War and Endgame, not to mention all the previous times where he appeared for 5 seconds. And I just think they handled the idea of a big bad villain a lot better, because they made Avengers Infinity War into a Thanos origin story, basically. And this movie doesn't really do that, unfortunately. Steppenwolf is still pretty evil, over the top, not really someone you can relate to. This movie is more of like a Cyborg origin story, and has value in and of itself, but the result is the villain is still kind of shit in this movie. Part of the problem with Zack Snyder's Justice League with regards to the villains is you got all these dudes, you got like Desaad, and you got Darkseid, and you got Steppenwolf, and they all talk like this. They all talk in low voices, and it's hard to tell them apart or care about any of them. So Didn't like the villain. What else was not good about Zack Snyder's Justice League? Well, I thought most of the extended universe stuff was pretty bad. Martian Manhunter, can we please have a moratorium on this thing where people like basically look at the camera and say what their superhero name is? You are Scarlet Witch. There's going to be carnage.
There's gonna be carnage.
Dude, it's just so clunky. It feels so stupid. It rips me out of the reality of the film. All the Martian Manhunter stuff with garbage, all the epilogue stuff with the future and the nightmare version of the universe that we're never gonna see. It just felt like a complete waste of time and detracted. It's great that it's like Zack Snyder's original vision, but like I really enjoyed the movie overall, and it's kind of a shame that it's not like self-contained because we're probably never going to see this version of the DC universe. And I mean, who knows? I thought we would never see this Zack Snyder's Justice League, so maybe we will see that version, but if we don't, then it will be basically a colossal waste of time. And also, Jared Leto is by far the worst Joker, so any scene with him in it was bad. But ultimately, the biggest problem with Zack Snyder's Justice League is not something that's even found within Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's called Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which is to say, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, even the extended version, was a bad film. It was awful. And this movie is supposed to build on that, but like because that movie was so bad, you're building on this foundation of sand. Bruce Wayne as a character makes absolutely no sense in both that movie and this movie, right? As an example, in this movie, he's like, no, we have to bring Superman back. It's the only way. Dude, you're the one that was like trying to kill Superman with everything he could, like last. It just, what? So I think that Bruce Wayne, he's the real problem, and it's because of how Batman v Superman did him dirty, right? The idea that Martha is going to change his whole mind, all that stuff, it feeds into this one, and it's another weakness of this film, is just that because everything that came before was not super strong, and you're relying on those characterizations, and you want to theoretically pay them off in this movie, a little weaker as a result of that. But to close, my favorite part of Zack Snyder's Justice League and Zack Snyder's work in general is that it does honor to these characters. These DC Comics characters are basically gods, right? They're superhumans, metahumans, whatever you want to call them, but one single metahuman could like annihilate the entire planet. And Zack Snyder seems to believe that. He seems to respect it. And he treats them as such. He frames them in epic-looking ways, in iconic ways. And I really appreciate that. I dig the fact that he's using tons of slow motion. We don't get much slow motion in the MCU, you know? And yes, that makes the movie really, really long, but also, like, we don't really get a chance to see stuff like this in other superhero films. So I'm like, okay, I'm cool with it. But Zack Snyder's Justice League is also a hopeful movie, right? Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, didn't find them particularly hopeful. This movie, kind of a hopeful film, right? The idea that humanity, when pressed, can come together in the face of evil and put it down. And I like that most of all, that thematically this movie says that there's a reason for us to keep going and that there is good in us after all. So I hope you enjoyed Zack Snyder's Justice League. I hope you enjoyed this video review. Of course, if you did enjoy it, feel free to hit like or subscribe. Hit that bell icon. Make sure that you get notifications whenever I make a new video. I also want to thank my patrons, especially my executive producer patrons over at patreon.com/Dave Chen. I want to thank Sid Yadav, Steve Austin, Dan Flanagan, Jeff Evans, and Mark Warner. And all of the other fine folks at patreon.com/Dave Chen. Y'all are awesome. You're the reason that I'm making videos like this one, that I'm making podcasts like Culturally Relevant, and all the other work I do online. Patreon.com/Dave Chen. Thanks so much. See you in the next one.